Hi everyone, I'm Kate. I am the Community Development Officer at Mayan, which stands for the Multicultural Youth Advocacy Network. We are the national peak body for young people from migrant and refugee backgrounds. I'll be your facilitator today. We are here joined by five amazing young people who've been working closely with me to bring this webinar together, and I'm really proud of them and all the effort and work they've put in and all the patience they've had with me. So thank you all for being here. I'm joining today from traditional country. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm meeting you today. I'm joining from the land of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung and the Bunurong peoples of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past and present and acknowledge that we are all meeting on, if you're joining from Australia, we are meeting on unceded Aboriginal land today, and extend my respect to any Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people that might be in the audience today. Um, I think this is a very important um, webinar where we can bring young people together and um, young people that have been impacted by the change in the law, which we call the social media minimum age um, law. It's a bit of a long one, but I'll be using that today a lot. I think it's great to have conversation about this. And so as some of you may know, our young people in Australia now need to be 16 years old to or over to have a social media account on some of the common social media platforms. So they're called age restricted platforms. So to support young people and so all of you here today and the young people that you work with in this transition, in navigating this change, Mayan has partnered with Think HQ, some of whom are in the audience today. Thank you, Think HQ, for being here and for your support on this project. So we want this to be a resource. We want this webinar to be a useful conversation and a place where we can share lots of useful information for young people and for young people to tell us about their experience and what other people should know about their experience. So yeah, this is a bit of a pulse check to see how you are all faring. And yeah, we want to hear from you, your perspectives on adapting to the new law and what advice you would give to other young people like yourself as well who are having similar experiences. So I might give you a chance to introduce yourself now. So please unmute yourself, say hi, your name, your age, and where you're joining us from today. Maybe we'll start with whoever's first on my screen. So I'll go with Miriam.
Okay. So I'm Miriam. I'm 14 years old and I live in a regional town in Victoria called Ballarat.
Lovely. Thank you, Aryan.
Hi, my name's Ariana and I'm 15 years old and I live in Queensland. And I got everyone can't say hi.
Cool. Thank you. Taihan.
Hi everyone, my name's Taihan. I'm 16 years old and I'm from Melbourne, Victoria.
Thanks, Taihan. Amalia.
Hi everyone, I'm Amalia. I'm from Ballarat, Victoria.
To Ballarat representing young people in the room today. And last but not least, we have Rehan.
Hi, my name's Rihan. I'm 13 years old and I am in Melbourne.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you all so much. On you might also see on the screen Karili, who is from Mayan as well. She's my colleague and she's helping me out with the chat, moderating, looking at your questions. So if you have any questions, we have some time towards the end for a Q&A with the young people. So please use the Q&A function to send some questions to the young people here today. I guess we'll get started with our first question today, which I'll ask Amalia and Miriam, both of you. So you know each other. You're both based in Ballarat, which is in regional Victoria. Very beautiful place. I've been there many times, and I know that you're connected with some of the local multicultural youth organizations there, namely our partner Centre for Multicultural Youth. My first question for you both is. Tell us a bit about how you were using social media before some of your accounts got deactivated. Tell us just how it went for you and your friends. What was your experience like, just in general?
Hi. I was able to talk with my international friends and connect with different communities. I wasn't banned off most apps, but my friends have been taken off the apps that I haven't. And being able to connect with them was a really important thing for me, and no longer being able to talk with them where I usually would is harder. We've tried transferring about majority of my group chats to different apps like WhatsApp, but with some of my friends like from China per se, I'm not able to talk with them all the time.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Miriam, did you want to go?
Yeah, so prior to the ban, it was mainly just communication on all these sorts of apps like TikTok and Instagram. And then after, I have to say, I was banned, but lots of my friends were still able to stay on the app. I don't know how, they just were able to. So, we did try to move our group chats again to like WhatsApp or Discord, but I also have like international friends from like other countries that aren't able to access those apps. So it is a bit hard to keep in touch.
Thanks. Thank you for sharing that. I think there's some shared experience there. And I think we've before this law came into effect, there's been a lot of looking into how young people use social media, how young people stay connected online, and your experiences definitely reflect what has been found. There are a lot of resources and information that we'll share in the chat as I go, including some of the ways that young people some of the research, some really cool infographics that might be really interesting to young people as well from eSafety. So Kirili will help me out and put those in the chat. And yeah, social connection is a really important one, and I think that the experience of some people losing their access to their account, but some people not losing, or some accounts but not all account, is quite reflective of what we know is happening about with the change in the law. It's a bit of a gradual process. It came into effect on the 10th of December 2025. So I suppose this is what the eSafety Commissioner has sort of communicated about how this is going to happen. It might be a bit of a gradual change, but as the situation evolves, because there's millions and millions and millions of accounts, therefore it takes some time. Thank you both for answering this question. I'll go to the next question. Thank you, Kirili, for the link in the chat. I'll go to the next question for Ariana, if you're ready to answer that now. Ariana, you're joining us from Queensland, and you told me a bit about how you were using social media and how you have lost access to some of your accounts. But can you also share, because we talked about this recently, can you share with us what you do in your free time generally, and maybe some new routines or habits that you have developed since the change in the law?
Yeah, sure. So ever since my account got expired, it got logged out and I couldn't access it because my age is under 18. I kind of been more productive because I realized how after school I would usually be scrolling, but now I've actually find time to like do my homework, not being less lazy. I've been like working out a bit and stuff, and I haven't been as lazy as I used to be. But also, it's been a bit hard to communicate with my friends because we had to switch to like a whole different app, and like it was a bit of a challenge because not all of my friends have phone numbers to call. That's why we use apps like TikTok, Snapchat to text. But now it's been a bit more difficult. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think you kind of give a really balanced, there's some pros and some cons of the change, and I think that's the experience of many young people. Did you notice any change in your friends, in your people around you as well? Do you know about their experience as well?
Yeah, not all of their accounts got locked out, but I noticed that my friends were like not online as much as they used to be, and like we've been more productive and stuff.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think there is a really that's going to come up in some of the questions that we prepared later on, but the need to make sure that young people don't feel disconnected because of this change, the way in which everybody can support them, everybody around them, as well as, some of the agency that young people have. We'll talk more about that. So thank you for sharing those experiences. My next question is to Rayhan. Hi, Rayhan. Rayhan, you're joining us today as the youngest speaker, and you've got a bit of a different experience because you haven't actually been on social media in the same way that the others have. And now your use has been delayed until you do turn 16, so you have a couple more years to wait. How do you feel about this change? Do you feel like maybe it's easier for you because you weren't used to it anyway? Do you feel a bit, how has that been for you?
Well, for me personally, it hasn't been a huge adjustment, obviously, because I've never used social media. But so I guess in that sense, it's easier. But I don't think that means that the change didn't matter, because I definitely saw how social media influenced the people around me. Like even if I wasn't on those apps myself.
Yeah, and can you tell me a bit more about that? Like, how have you seen that social media has affected the people around you, your friends' experience, and how they've been navigating the transition?
Yeah, my friends, they all have like super mixed reactions, I think. Because some
Mm.
are like relieved because there's no pressure of having to like constantly be online, like messaging back to everyone. But some other people find it frustrating because social media is the way that they connected. So I guess that's just shown me the impact of social media and how like drastic the impact has been on all young people, no matter how they use social media.
Right. And maybe you and the people your age are going to have a bit of a different experience from of growing up, I guess, as digital natives. So I guess that's something to see the differences and the impacts. That's something that we'll probably need to wait many years, but um and I guess hopefully, we can see some positive change um in this area. Um, thank you. Thank you so much, Rayhan. Um, so I think that the next question that I had was, oh yes. So what I was talking about acknowledging that it's very important for young people to stay connected, and we know that today young people find being online a very accessible way to stay connected. And I want to ask you, maybe because we talked about transitioning to some different apps that have not been affected by the age restriction. So I want to ask you if you have found alternative ways to stay connected with friends, whether that's online ways or in-person ways. Um, maybe it was Miriam who mentioned transitioning to some different apps, Amalia as well. Maybe you can tell us more about that. has that been like for you?
Yeah. So it's definitely been a bit of a difficulty, especially as Ariana said, not everyone has phone numbers. So it's like trying to find new apps where you don't need phone numbers. But I feel like it's not been that bad of a transition for more of my like local friends that aren't like overseas. So mainly we've been using WhatsApp and Discord. But I feel like it's mixed feelings on the band. Like I'm definitely doing more homework, not spending as much time online, but I would it's been difficult connecting with most of my friends.
Right. And definitely, did you want to add something to this, Amalia?
Yeah, I'd say it has. There's been differences with some of my friends. They're way more social in person, and so didn't really matter if I could text them or not. But with some of my other friends, I don't see them a lot, so I had to use forms of social media to text them. But I feel like my friends and I were getting more productive now. That we're banned off most social media apps, but that could just be my experience. But other than that, I have been able to like go out and see my friends more. Um, so long as we're able to all plan something in the WhatsApp group chats when they check them. Because WhatsApp is really hard to check sometimes.
Is it true that, like, do you think, and that I guess this is a question to any of you, do you think that you would become more phone call people now with this change? Or, because we know that younger people, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, are very much not phone call people. But yeah, I don't know what you think.
I've personally, I've always been a phone call person. I'd much
Oh,
rather, I'd much rather like phone call because I don't want to be sitting here texting or anything. I Unless it's like a video or something, I like sending my friends videos and connecting with them over that, like in some communities that I'm in.
amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, personally, I'm like a FaceTime person. I love like just like FaceTiming my friends and just like talking to them for like really long. And also like voice messages. I've always been like a voice message person, even like on social media. But
We love a voice message. It's your own little personal podcast from your friends, and you send to them, and they listen to it as they're like doing other things, which is always fun. Um, Thank you both for sharing that. So what I thought would be useful as well is I'll provide the link, or Kirili, thank you very much. We'll provide the link to the list of accessible apps, those that have not been age restricted. This is useful to, I know most of you on the panel know about these, but we have some people who listening in who work with young people, maybe parents and carers. Some apps that are still accessible are Discord, Messenger, Pinterest, Roblox, as you mentioned, WhatsApp, and then YouTube Kids as well. I think there's a couple more in the list. To note as well that I think that this list may change as well as other apps come up, or other important things are identified. But I think if you want to look at any of the updated information, you would find it through this link. So I thought I'd put it up in the chat here. So I want to ask to Ariana first, but also anybody can answer this question as well and add on to this if you would like to. We know that first, second, and third generation migrants and young people use social media to connect with their heritage culture, or with people that friends that are overseas, as our other speakers mentioned. You know, what do you think are some ways that you can stay connected beyond those apps that you were using previously? Maybe thinking at safe online spaces for young people, local community groups, you know, or investing in
Um,
other things that will be good for young people?
Yeah. So if you can't like switch to another app because like everything's banned, you can maybe do like meetups and stuff, maybe like organize times to hang out in real life. That's only if there's like no options if everything's banned. Or you can get a phone number, create a WhatsApp because WhatsApp's not banned and you're still able to communicate with your friends.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we want to make sure that, you know, there's ways to continue connecting online. And when we're asking young people, you know, to find other ways or in-person ways to connect as well, we don't just tell them to do that, but we actually create the opportunities for them to feel like they can do that and they're empowered to do that. So I want to share that Mayan is shameless plug here. Mayan is super open to um, making sure that we have a community of young people who feel safe and supported and connected with each other. Um, so we have a minus 16 Her, which has so many resources and information about, you know, ways to stay connected now that some of the apps that you normally use are not accessible anymore to you. And then we always run, so we're a national organization, so we always have ways that young people can be brought together, often online, but sometimes in person as well. We have advisory groups, we have events, we have consultations, we have focus groups, we have all kinds of things. So definitely get involved with Mayan through the link in the chat as well, because we also are connected with other organizations across different states and territories, which we could support you in connecting and finding ways to meet your community in person. Um, so I know that many of you are, you know, we've heard from actually all of you, but we haven't heard from Taihan yet. So I'll go to the next question and pose it to you, Taihan. So you're Rehan's older brother, and as someone who's 16 years old, you have not been directly impacted by the change in the law. Can you tell us a bit about your experience as an older sibling and the role that um you feel like you're playing in supporting your brother?
Yeah, sure. I think it's really interesting, the situation that myself and my brother Rihan are in, because as I'm 16, I've been just exempt from the ban, whereas Rihan is 13 and he would have been at the age at which he could have accessed social media if the ban wasn't in place. So I think that's a really interesting dynamic. I think in terms of the importance of siblings and parents in supporting young people, um, siblings and parents can really be that first point of contact for a lot of young people when they're navigating the digital world or they have questions that they want to ask. So I think when we're addressing the issue of digital safety and digital well-being, I think the focus shouldn't just be on young people themselves, but also empowering the people in their community, their siblings, their families to also have that same level of knowledge so that if needed, they are able to step up and to support the young people in their care. Obviously, it's important to empower the young people with themselves, with the skills and abilities they need to be safe. But if we can really empower everyone else around them to provide that support, I think that's what can really contribute to a safe digital environment.
I totally agree, Taihan, and I think you're spot on with this one because there needs to be, you know, I think young people have a support system around them, so they should be well equipped to support them and understand how that might feel in the moment with the change. I think a lot of the advice that we know and have heard is to acknowledge the loss that some people, young people feel about this change and this transition, and help them and be understanding and empathetic. We talked about the importance when you and I talked previously. We talked about the importance of focusing on building digital literacy skills and e-safety capabilities for young people who eventually will turn 17 and then access social media. So I thought that was a really important thing that you brought up. So maybe you can share with us, why you think that's important and what do you think can be done about this, and yeah, any other thoughts around that?
Yeah, so kind of what I've been talking about recently has been um, we're delaying the access to social media for young people until they turn 16. But what are we actually doing until young people turn 16 to make sure that when they do access social media, they have the skills to stay safe and use it in a positive way? So an analogy I've used quite often is a car. You can't give someone a car and the keys to the car without teaching them how to actually drive it properly. How can they stay safe in that car? So a lot of the focus for me has been on the fact that um, whether the ban should be a thing or whether it shouldn't isn't really a question anymore since it's passed through legislation. But I think the discussion really needs to shift towards empowering young people to be able to use social media safely and what we're actually doing in between up until they access social media to make sure that they're able to use it properly. So the emphasis on digital literacy is really important in this scenario.
I agree, and I think that that's definitely a piece of advocacy that we feel passionate about, and that we think we should really spend time, focus, and invest in. Some of this has been addressed by the Safety Commissioner. There are some resources that we are sharing now. In the chat about how young people can stay safe online. There's lots of things like how to spot dangerous behaviors, how to have critical thinking online, how to like see what misinformation looks like, how to be careful about how to fact check certain things. So these are definitely important skills that people in general, let alone young people, actually have to build. And I think there's a lot out there that exists, but I think more has to be done to really connect with young people and support them in engaging with these resources. Um, and another thing that I would add is because my beliefs that young people have agency and should be able to have a say in the policies that affect them. Um, if any of you or anyone listening in wants to be part of the eSafety Youth Council, they have one. And there's a link in the chat to go and apply to join the Youth Council, and you can have your opinions heard and support the legislative changes or things that related to digital um, literacy for young people. And I think I would really encourage anyone to take up these opportunities because it can really make a difference. And it's really important to have those that are really directly affected by policies to be part of shaping them. Thank you, everyone. I think that unfortunately Amalia has had some internet issues and has dropped off, so hopefully she can join us again. We have some great questions from the chat that I will open to all of you speakers. So someone from our audience asks that nonprofit organizations were using social media to reach out to young people. So they were advertising and promoting the things that they were doing to reach young people, especially when it comes to youth mental health. As young people yourself, and as many of you who don't have access to the typical social media channels that you use, what do you think would be some alternative places to share those opportunities and advertise and reach out to young people who are under 16?
Yeah, I think that's a really important consideration. But something that would definitely come to my mind would be connecting and working with schools, because that is one of the main places where young people aged under the age of 16 would be. Um, because you've lost that way of connection through social media, they're no longer able to hear or learn about opportunities through that. So by going to environments where they already are, so in terms of going to young people instead of asking them to come to you, I think schools are a really good way to connect directly with them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one, and I think your point about finding young people where they already are applies to many different contexts as well. School is one of them, but um, I suppose also myself answering part of the question is um, community groups and sports clubs and other youth services. This is actually how I was able to get in touch with most of you because of our connection with organizations that work directly with young people. So there's definitely ways to stay engaged and connected with young people under 16. And um, I hope that, there's considerable effort made into reaching out. Um, we have another question in the chat. So Bradley asks, actually, I think you said your name was different, but it's showing up as Bradley here. Um, one of the key reasons for the ban was to reduce online bullying. Um, so does the panel feel any safer? Do you think that being off social media, in a sense, can make you safer? Um, is that I'll ask that first part of the question first. Miriam, did you want to go? I see you've unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I think that I definitely feel like lots of people would feel safer as like you don't have like just random people able to like comment on your posts and say mean things. But obviously, like if you have like a huge school group chat with like everyone in your grade in it, you're still going to experience some bullying, but I feel like it's definitely decreased prior to the ban.
Thank you. Thank you, Miriam. I think you made two really good points, and that was also part of the question that Bradley asked is, if is the possibility of bullying more still possible in like things like big group chats and those sorts of things. I guess from my point of view, the difference would be at least it's not a random stranger and there's possibly ways to address that bullying in a way that can help hold the person accountable, which is quite hard to do in a very huge online space. So some of the harm might have been um, you know, prevented, but it's not, of course, not a perfect solution. Um, so another questions. Thank you so much for your questions, by the way. Please send through more questions if you have any. I'll ask you a question from Chloe. Chloe asks, did any of the panelists talk to their parents about social media? How did that go? Like, how did that conversation go? And what do you think parents should remember when they talk to you about this topic?
So I actually asked my mum if I could use her face for the face recognition thing. Of course, she said no, but um, so um, but she was like, you're already like 14, you'll like get it back after 2 years. But I feel like parents need to keep in mind both sides. Like, of course, like, yeah, it's like positive, but like we're gonna miss like just chatting and doom scrolling and everything. So I feel like parents can't just have like one like side, like, oh, social media is bad. Like they need to be like in the middle about it and like need to support their kid on like whatever like they choose. Like say your kid like doesn't even want social media, then that's great, and don't force your kid to get social media.
Thanks, Miriam. Thanks for sharing that. Amalia?
I asked my mom the same thing about the facial recognition, and she told me, no, go use your Mars. So,
Oh,
in Myanmar, so I haven't been able to ask her if I can use it. But then, I tried using my best friends. It didn't work.
so I think thank you for sharing that, because I think it's realistic to share that there are like you know, young people are going to try to circumvent some of the rules, but I guess very responsible, I suppose, of your parents for holding their ground. But I think, you know, maybe Taihan, Rehan, or Ariana, you want to share also your experience with your parents, like what the conversations with your parents have been around social media. What's their position? How are they supporting you? How do you think parents in general should be supporting their kids?
Yeah, I think I would really connect to what I'm saying before as parents and even siblings being part of a young person's support network. Um, I think having a conversation is really that first step. Um, because a lot of young people might get information or guidance from their parents, but if they're able to have really meaningful two-way conversation about what their use of social media means to them, that's when you can really start to have other conversations about what safety looks like, what using social media in a positive way looks like. So having that supportive network around a young person is really important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of parents from what I know have felt you know, also similar to young people, you know, they acknowledge the dangers or the harms that the use of social media can cause, but they also understand that it's a very important part of a young person's life. And I think that most parents, you know, they want the best for for their kids, and they would support them in doing the right thing. Um, my question to you is, you know, now that, you know, as we've talked about and we acknowledge that this is the first step, um, you know, the minimum age change in the law is the first step in supporting young people's safety, mental health, and so on, because that was as one of our audience members said, that was the idea behind the minimum age law, to prevent strangers to have access to young people, to make sure that, you know, some of the opportunities for cyberbullying or stalking or really harmful behavior to, um, you know, that to remove the access to young people. Um, so, you know, I wonder if like what else do you think can be done, um, either on the side of policymakers of the government, or if there's anything that you know from your friends or um, people that you know that can be done to support these goals, to make sure that young people are safe, to make sure that there's ways to protect them online and so on. Miriam?
So for us, we have like nothing at school that mentions like anything about online safety or anything like that. I feel like it'd be really good if like they could add like something like that to the curriculum where they could just have like, I don't know, like 20 minutes of like some sort of class where like they just mention how to keep yourself safe online and steps like that.
Yeah, definitely, because there's definitely um, ways that uh, to spot really some behaviors that are not normal, and for people to understand that it's not okay. And I definitely, I think it's if that's something that could be embedded in the education and curriculum system for young people, then that will support in keeping them informed and protected. Um, I know that a lot of you are connected with some community organizations, so Centre for Multicultural Youth or the Australian Youth Affairs Coalition or Settlement Services International in Queensland. So for you, I want to ask you, what difference does it make to be connected to these organizations in how it helps and supports you in staying connected? Like, what are some of the opportunities that you think arise from those real tangible connections that you have in person, that you have with organizations that work with young people and for young people? And how do you think that can be, some of the positive parts of it um, can be made accessible to so many more young people? I wonder if Ariana wants to go, because I want to give you the opportunity to answer that one. What do you think like being connected with the local services, what difference does it make for you to feel engaged and connected to your community?
Like connected to my community online or like in real life?
In real life, like through SSI, through in the youth groups that you're part of.
It feels good getting to know like what's going on with the community around me and knowing the news and everything and feeling connected with people around me that I live around. It's good. It feels.
And do you feel like those organizations can it's time for them to really step up and do even more to make sure that young people feel connected and are not feeling let down by this change, and navigate the transition in a safe and healthy way?
Yeah, it like we all makes us all connected and we can discuss like issues that's going around. Like we can all support each other and like bring the community close by getting to know everyone's experience and how everyone is and stuff.
Amazing, thank you. Currently, do we have any other questions in the Q&A function? Oh, I think I've answered all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So uh all of you, so Miriam, Taihan, Rehan, Ariana, and hopefully Amalia, when her connection um is better and she can join us again. If you had to share something with, the people in government, people in power, people that make policies about young people, what advice would you share with them? What do you think is something that they should know about your experience? How to engage with you? What would be what do you think? I guess the main broad question is, what do you think they should know? You can go, Miriam.
For me personally, I say, don't fight it. I feel like you should just embrace it. Like it's not gone forever, you know? So whatever, how many years you have left, just take it as like preparation time for it. Honestly, like I got social media like when I was like 12, which is pretty early. And honestly, like I feel like those people who like aren't getting it when they're 12 are kind of lucky. Because I definitely experienced bullying when I was like 12 online and a whole sorts of other stuff. So don't fight it. Like honestly, like and like when you're 12, you really don't need it. Like go like hang out with your friends every weekend and like do stuff like that, you know?
Um, Amazing. I mean, you really said go touch some grass.
Yeah.
Um, well, I guess that was that's a great message, and I think it's a good message to your like people in the same situation as you, in the same boat, who've been impacted by the changes in the law, to take it as a bit of of an opportunity, and now that the legislation has passed, to see how they can, make the most out of the change, because the change is meant to be, it's not it's not meant to be a punishment, or it's not because young people did anything wrong. But it's because so many outside external factors have affected, the safety and the mental health of young people online, acknowledging all the positive aspects as well. Um, so so I guess again, like, if there's something that you would say to those, actually, we've got so many more questions in the chat. Oh no. No. I'm looking at the older questions.
We do have one question
Oh,
from the chat,
yes.
which I can read out. I'm
Yeah,
not sure if
sure.
you can see it. I work in the refugee resettlement program, and many of our families don't speak English proficiently, and we worry that the message hasn't been well communicated with people from non-English speaking backgrounds. What do you think?
I'm happy to go first, and then I would want I would love if anybody else wants to jump in. I think making sure that we communicate with people who speak all kinds of different languages in Australia is super critical and super important. So definitely there should be a lot of effort made towards making sure there's translations and it's accessible and people know where to look for information if they want to have clarification. I guess to answer my own question from before is, if there's one thing I could um share, is to definitely try and all of us combined try to make sure that resources are translated and accessible to people of all different language backgrounds. So I don't know, is that and I guess the last thing I will add to this is what is what young people need to remember, and their families and their communities as well, is that there is no consequence so all of the responsibility of age restriction is put on the platforms. So young people themselves who are online, or their parents and their carers, are not going to be responsible or liable to using social media, or if they're still figuring out how this change in the law is impacting them. So that's a positive reminder. So I wonder if any of you have any experience from that, in terms of different languages. And I actually, sorry, I said that was the last thing, but it's not. Actually, there have been some translations of the information from the eSafety Commissioner. So we'll make sure to share that in the resources as well, once we send the follow-up email. There is a list of languages. It's not coming up in my mind now. I'm sure that Curly will pop the link up in the chat, and we can share that with all of you. Did any of you want to add anything to this question, making sure that this information is clear and accessible to people who speak other languages than English?
Yeah, sure. I think one really common experience for a lot of people whose first language isn't English is how a lot of information is presented mainly in English, and a lot of the avenues for translation or more accessible formats of information can be really inaccessible, or it's unclear often how to access them. So I think really making it accessible, working with community groups who are on the ground actually working with culturally and linguistically diverse young people and their families, working with them to actually get the word out in accessible formats is really important.
Yeah, and I think both you, Taihan, and the Faith in the chat as well is agreeing on the point of it's not just the translated resources, but there should also be investment and support into engaging these people in person
Mm.
and explain and having conversations just like we're having now, conversations where people can feel like they can ask questions, clarify things, and a safe space to sort of express their fears and find, you know, a bit more maybe informal or even formal ways to find out more information. So we're coming to the end um, of our webinar now. I would love if any of you had any final thoughts to share, to give you an opportunity to do that before I share the last bit of like info. Do you want to share any final thoughts? I'll let all of you go. Final thoughts, highlights, and yeah, Ariana.
Today we learned about everyone's experience about the social media ban, about how everyone was like struggling to contact their friends, but we've come up with solutions, all of us, like talking about how we can come meet them in real life. We can get like phone numbers instead of like finding apps that doesn't need phone numbers because most of them are banned. And we've all shared our experience about how it was difficult to communicate with our friends.
Amazing. Thank you. Nice summary. And thank you for your contributions, Ariana. I can see you came straight from school. So you,
Yeah,
you
sorry.
really, yeah, that's all good. Rehan, do you have any final thoughts?
Not really. I'm just happy that everyone had like good thoughts today, and definitely enjoyed today, and hoped some people had the questions.
Amazing. I think maybe in like 10 years after you haven't, you know, you haven't used social media since like the age of 12, and then like compare you with someone who has, we'll see like we'll we'll like there'll be like studies about this. You will see like findings of how it has impacted people differently, or like outcomes that it has that have happened. It's very soon, like it's only been what, 3 months since the change in the law, so it's hard to tell what kind of long-term impact this will have, but we really hope that the positive impact that the government wanted out of this really come to fruition, and we all work together to address the negative ones, like the loss of connection that you've all talked about. We all work together to address this, to make sure that young people are engaged and safe and connected. Taihan, did you want to have any final thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, first just wanted to say thank you to Mayan for organizing the webinar today. It's been really great to be on the panel alongside such incredible young people and to talk about all of our experiences with social media. So thank you to you, Kate and Mayan. But yeah, I think this has really highlighted that the importance of social media as a tool for young people. And this ban has really put a spotlight onto the importance of talking about safety and well-being, not only in terms of online and social media, but about the other things that we are doing in young people's lives to empower them in the work and the learning that they are doing in their lives. So I'm really hopeful for the future, but it will be really interesting to see how the ban will actually play out long term.
Yeah, I'm also very interested and hope, hope we can see some really positive outcomes. Miriam, last but not least.
Um, if there was just one thing that I hope personally that can result for this ban is that as someone who is from like a multicultural background, who goes to school in like a more like Australian predominantly, so most of my friends are like Australian. However, my cultural background is like in South Indian. So I hope that there could be more like cultural groups that like could like form like more social cultural groups than online cultural groups. But yeah, I just hope that can happen in the near future.
Um, Honestly, really amazing point to end this session with. I think we we all talk about community and, being feeling connected. And maybe, we can think a lot more outside the box and not depend only. And when I say we, I mean not. I don't necessarily mean young people. I mean, everybody can think about outside the box and try our hardest to make sure that people are connected. There's community groups. There's ways that young people can meet in person. That there's spaces, physical spaces that are like fun, that are safe, accessible, that are free. You know, maybe this is going to cause a whole lot of amazing chain of events, like amazing public transport, like free events for young people. You know, this is what we want to see. Um, Thank you all so much for coming tonight. It's been so amazing working with you, putting this together. I'm really proud to be working with young people. As a young person myself, I'm young, not 16, but I'm young myself. It's always like it keeps me really energized and young to hear about your experiences, and it makes me feel like I because I work with young people, it makes me feel like I can really um uh do my best to represent what the things that you care about and want and need, because we try to center your voices in the conversation. So Mayan has been making sure that there is information out there for young people about the social media minimum age campaign. We have a webpage on our website called -16, mayan.org.au/-16. And then the whole eSafety Commissioner website with a bunch of resources. I know it can sound boring to say go to the eSafety Commissioner website, but I've actually gone back on it today and like looked at all of the resources that are out there, and there is so much, and it's in a very accessible way for young people. There's graphics, it's like divided into different topics. So please, I would encourage young people and those that work with them to go and visit the website. There is a feedback form actually that is available for you to share your experiences or any feedback, basically anything that you'd like to see improve, anything that you're experiencing that you think the government should know. There is a feedback form for you as young people to fill out. And someone in the audience shared something that a resource that they've created called Ride By You. So it's co-designed youth mental health resource to support young people who've lost access to some of their social media accounts and their ways of connecting through that. And I've also shared another one from Kids Helpline, acknowledging that, the there's so there's resources out there for young people, and people are acknowledging that it's not necessarily an easy transition, but it hopefully will bring some positive outcomes in your lives.